Hello everybody and welcome to the Whiskey Dictionary, where I do the research to try to teach you a little something about what you're drinking. Today I'm going to continue with my craft distillery series with Cedar Ridge. Now this is a distillery from Iowa, and in fact is the first distillery in Iowa since Prohibition, which is kind of crazy because it was only started in 2005. Now I did actually get a chance to meet the VP of Cedar Ridge. He came out to Julio's Liquors in Westboro, Massachusetts, and they have this little area down below it. People who watch the show have heard me talk about this place a few times. They have a place down in the basement of Julio's Liquors where they do classes. And these classes, they'll often bring in people from different distilleries to talk about their product. And that's exactly what happened. So the VP is this guy named Jamie. And Jamie, if you happen to be watching this, congratulations, and you know why. So Jamie talked a lot about all the different offerings that they have. There were 5, 6, 7 different bottles that he brought. A couple of them are ones that you can only get at the distillery, which is a very cool thing. So he mentioned to me, I told him what I did, and he mentioned that he'd be interested in kind of doing this, basically. So he sent me a couple of bottles. He sent me the bourbon and the single malt, which are basically their flagships. They've actually won some awards, and I'm just going to read this because I'll never remember. So they won the American Distillers Institute Award for Distillery of the Year in 2017, and the Best American Craft Whiskey in 2016 at the New York World Spirits Competition for the bourbon here. Now, for those of you that follow different awards, those are actually good awards. So it's a good thing, and basically says a lot about the distillery. Now, a couple of quick things. So this guy named Jeff Quint, he was the one that started the distillery, and he started that in 2005, as I mentioned. But the Quint family actually owns a winery, and they've been running it for a number of years to the point where they actually had the capital to put into a distillery. So none of this is MGP. Right? They've done this all themselves. In fact, they ship their corn from about 40 miles away from their own farm. So, I mean, that's great. And this bourbon is made of 74% of that corn. It's also made of 14% malted rye and 12% 6-row barley. So, for those of you that don't know, the 6-row barley, it's got a lot more to it. So you tend to get a lot more oily esters, kind of a lot more body to it. Now, that being said, 12% is not a ton, so be that as it may, we'll continue. So this whiskey is basically, it's aged in a rickhouse, and this rickhouse, they leave the doors open to it all the time. The idea being that the air and the climate of Iowa should influence the whiskey. And oddly enough, you might think that sounds a little gimmicky, but it seems to make a difference, because I was looking up other people's nosing and tastings, as I tend to do before I do this episode, just to make sure I'm not missing anything significant. And people were all over the map on this thing. And as you looked, they would be trying all kinds of different batches. So this bottle is from batch number 378. I saw one all the way down to it was like batch number 20 something. So I mean, people are all over the place with this. So that being said, if you choose to buy this whiskey, you may have something completely different than what I'm about to tell you. So let's talk about the nosing and the tasting. Now, I will say I decided to put both of these on the table just because I felt like it looked nicer. I'm going to go over this one in a separate video because these are very different kinds of whiskeys. All right. I will note that this is called an Iowa bourbon, which I don't know what I feel about that. It's fine to be a little bit more specific, I suppose, but I'm a little worried with the whole craft thing that people are going to start making up their own categories. And I'm not even saying Cedar Ridge is. I personally I should have done the research, but I did not do the research to say that Iowa bourbon isn't a thing. Maybe they're just putting it on there to let you know where it came from. And that actually, I don't think I have a problem with, but I don't know. I guess I'm still on the fence. I don't want to see Utah bourbon and, California single malt and whatever. So I don't know, a little rant there. All right, let's go into the nose. So as you can see from the bottle, I haven't had a whole lot of this, but I have gone through and taken some notes on this, and my notes basically match what I'm experiencing right now. The nose is very subtle. There's nothing that kind of just jumps out at you. There's a little bit of oak, there's a little bit of toffee, there's honestly not a whole lot more. Maybe it smells, so it almost smells like new wood, which I know sounds a little weird, but bear with me here. So let's say you're chopping wood, that inner part of the wood has a very distinct smell to it, and I'm getting that out of this. So if there's anything to that for you, then that will give you some idea. That's about the most prominent thing you're getting out of the nose though. All right, let's go into the tasting. Cheers. All right, so the taste is better than the nose. It's very balanced. I'm gonna say, once again, there's nothing jumping out at you. There's no, you're not like, oh my gosh, this is caramel, or this is pear, or whatever. This is just bourbon. And to that end, I think this could be great to mix because it wouldn't necessarily overpower your drink, but even still. So the couple of notes that I took here is that it's very smooth. There's a bit of graininess to it, which I don't know that I love that. It's not enough to drive me away from it by any means, but it's kind of like a toasted grain. So there's also, yes, that's right. So the toasted graininess of it kind of, I basically wrote down that I thought that might have been the rye kind of playing a bit with the corn, but either way. And then there's a little bit of caramel, which is nice, and then a little bit of pear, which I always like when pear shows up. But all of these flavors, you really got to dig for those. I like this as a balanced bourbon, but I also enjoy drinks with prominent flavors. So that's my opinion. Doesn't necessarily mean it's yours. All right, let's go into the overall here. So what do I think of this whiskey? Well, this whiskey is available in 17 states. I'm gonna put up a big image here for you to take a look and see if you're one of them. So this whiskey costs about $40, and there's a lot of whiskeys out there that are probably better for $40. A lot of bourbons, but as we've talked about on this distillery channel with the craft distilleries, they're always going to have a harder time competing with the Maker's Marks and the Buffalo Trace and anybody else, Heaven Hill, because they don't have the volume. You know, they can't get the discounts, they can't keep up. So you're gonna pay more. But what you need to decide is if you're looking for a balanced bourbon. This could actually be a very good bourbon to introduce somebody to bourbon, because it's not gonna hit them in any way, shape, or form in a harsh way, you know? So I think that would be my recommendation for what to do with this whiskey. If you're gonna have a tasting, this could be a good whiskey to start the night with, to just kind of warm people's palates up and kind of get them going. So would I recommend this? I don't know. I like this as a try it. I mean, I kind of gave you my idea of what I think you should do with it. What I don't recommend is this bourbon over the single malt. And I'm going to talk about the single malt in either a week or a couple of weeks. It'll be on a Wednesday. I think this is a much better dram. So hang tight and watch for this review. All right, that does it for this episode of the Whiskey Dictionary. Thank you very much for joining me, and I'll see you on Friday with a new review. Cheers. Do the research, try to teach you a little something about what you're doing. They kind of, you know, they have their own farms and they make their own corn, as everybody in Iowa does. Literally every single person.